Today we have a very interesting subject. And let me start with, we're on the Exploring the Seven Worlds series, but let me start by refreshing your memories on the seven worlds. So I'll start with a screen share, and this is the diagram of the seven worlds. So of the seven worlds, we have covered the world of water, which is our world, where all life forms are created and exist on the basis of water, which makes them organic. Then we have the world of fire, which is where the beings are created from fire free of smoke. And this is the world of the jinns and other creation that we cannot see because they live in different dimensions to us. We are a three-dimensional world. They have more dimensions. But in our last class, we covered these two worlds in some detail. Then today, we're going to go into the world of formation. Fascinating world. I think there might even be up to 3 classes or more, or 2 to 3 classes on world of formation, because it's such a vast subject and it impacts our day-to-day life in such a significant manner. So we're going to spend a fair bit of time on the world of formation, uncovering new knowledge, things we haven't thought of, learning new techniques. So this is going to be a really interesting journey for all of us. Then we have the world of thought, where we also engage with the world of thought while we are in the world of water. But the world of thought is where all thoughts originate and culminate. And all the memories and all the experiences that have taken place through our journeys, all of them live here, because remember, thought has life. And then there is the world of the eternal, which is the very next world after we leave this world or this form. Souls generally, depending on whatever journey they are at, the world of eternal is that one place where they go and we reset ourselves and prepare for the journeys ahead. And this world is very deeply spiritual. And I'm looking forward to sharing dimensions of this, so that we will be able to also understand and appreciate better our loved ones who have passed on as well. Then we have the world of assimilation, and this world is closest to the world of light, because all the knowledge that has been derived by a soul throughout its journey goes through that stage of assimilation. All the experiences become knowledge in this world. So even when a soul seeks to manifest in any of the other worlds, the karmic compass is set here. And so this will be at least a couple of classes. And then finally, the world of light, the world that drives everything, the world that we all strive to ultimately merge into and become the light. So this gives you a quick recap of this world. So now, I would say that in the last class, we covered world of water and world of fire, which I just mentioned. And these are the 2 of the 7 worlds where we may have manifested many times on our journeys, because these are the 2 worlds where we can derive experience. So these are 2 experiential worlds. And so we will be coming back to these worlds and referencing them as we go to the balance of the 5 worlds. Now today we come to this world of formation. And like I said, it's such a fascinating world that I've broken it into multiple classes. So what is the world of formation? The world of formation is the world where all forms get created, wherever they are to manifest. So every form that exists, be it rocks, mountains, animals, humans, plants, birds, marine life, all these creation, all the forms that we see in our world take their form or are created in the world of formation. Every form in the world of fire is also created here, from the jinns to all the forms that exist in their world. Every form in the universes, including those that exist in more dimensions than our three-dimensional world, they also get created here. Every meteor in space, every particle ever created receives its form in the world of formation. So you can think of the world of formation as the source of all forms. Forms that we know, as well as those that we don't. Now, this is very important because if we are able to access and understand this world of formation well, you can see that we will be raising ourselves to a much higher intellectual level, because all other forms that are created outside of our world also are created here. So even catching clear glimpses of this world could be very rewarding. For those who are scientists, those who are artists, could be very, very inspiring, which is why I'm proposing to take a little longer with these classes, at least doing more classes on them. Now, as we move forward, we have to classify forms in two categories. So there is the animate forms and inanimate forms. So there are two types of forms we will work with: animate forms and inanimate forms. Now, animate forms are what we consider as living forms, those which can move about, like humans, birds, animals. These are the living forms that move around, which is why we call them animate forms. And for the purpose of simplicity, we will also include living forms that do not move about in this category, like trees, grass, forests, flowers, plants, all non-moving creatures. We will include them in animate forms so that we tie them together as living forms. I know that the definition of animate is, goes around the motion and movement, but I'm putting all living forms in this category of animate forms. So if we look at inanimate forms, these include forms that we do not consider alive, and these forms do not move about either. So these include rocks, crystals, mountains, human-made structures, anything you and I create that gets form, all that is an inanimate form, and that fits in the second category. So let us accept that all forms, animate and inanimate, are created in the world of formation. So that's our umbrella definition. Animate, inanimate forms created in the world of formation. Therefore, the world of formation is the center of all creativity. It is the center of all creativity. And this world is accessed by all the seven worlds and all the creation in all the universes. So it's an amazing world. Now, as I said, everything that we see in our material world, the world of water, was created here. And what is not created yet will undergo creation here. And this is why it is important to understand the world of formation from the material and spiritual viewpoint, because creation is continuous. And the spiritual ethos of creation is continuous. Our Creator continues to create on a constant basis. And as a result, we will look at that dimension of spiritual with the material forms that we are all exposed to and constantly work with and access. When we understand this world better, we may be able to also answer some of the age-old questions on causes of illness, because after all, the body is a physical form. It becomes ill. What causes that? How does healing work with the body or with anything that is unwell, with water, with the environment? How does healing work? Because the concept of healing works around correcting the form. So you've got to go back to the world of formation for that. What is the true role of consciousness? Feng Shui. And how to create an optimal environment for our spiritual and material well-being. If we understand the world of formation and we understand how inanimate forms exist and how we can work with them, and how animate forms exist and how we can work with them, then we can use that knowledge to enhance our lives significantly at a material level and at a spiritual level. So this world offers us many options for shaping and enhancing our lives. And like I said, in ways we may not have considered before. And in terms of insights, this world offers us profound insights from a scientific, artistic, and spiritual perspective. And I'll be addressing all the information, all the knowledge that we will look at together. I'll be addressing it from these three dimensions. So quite a holistic approach we will take. Now, to understand the world of formation, let us start by considering the question, what is life? Let us listen to a conversation between, you all know our favorite angels, Cyrus and Luminous, who come and teach us a lot of fun stuff. So let us listen to a conversation between angel Cyrus and Joseph, who is a gardener who takes care of the beautiful gardens in the famous Mormon church in Salt Lake City in the USA. These gardens are absolutely spectacular. And Karima and I visited this place a few years back, and we were totally blown away. So for a moment, let me just show you one collage of our pictures so you can visualize where all this is happening. So you can see, I mean, these gardens are just absolutely fascinating. And I thought I'd share it with you just so you could put some perspective around it. You know, these endless beds of beautifully manicured and cultured flowers like these. Then you have these pools that just go on, and each segment that the waters go through, they go through new types of flowers and new botany. Then you have the reflection pool, where you can sit out here and you can actually see the reflection of the trees and everything in the water. It's really, really fantastic. And then this is the reflection pool where the whole church reflects completely into the water. But in terms of gardens, this is one of the, I would say, the top 10 gardens that Karima and I have ever visited. So the conversation between Cyrus and Joseph occurs in this garden. And Joseph is the gardener that looks after these gardens. And they are sitting here next to the reflection pools. Joseph, being a gardener, is keenly aware of life and its beauty, but he wants to learn more. And as they sit next to the reflection pool, in which you can see this reflection of the church that I just shared with you, Angel Cyrus asks him, he says, when I ask you if you're living, what does that really mean to you, Joseph? Take a moment and think about it. So Joseph thinks about it and he says, to me, living means moving around. It means feeling with your senses, having functioning organs, or the flowing rivers, the green plants, the trees, like we see before us in the gardens. To me, this is living, this is life. And Cyrus says, yes, you're right. But these are just features of the notion of what it means to be alive. They are just features you're describing. You haven't told me what it is to be alive. And all humans kind of understand what life or being alive is and understand this notion in their own special ways. But what really is this life we're talking about? How can one perceive life? How can one understand life? So let us explore this question further, Cyrus says to Joseph. He says, imagine for a moment, I take away your sight, and now you can't see anything. Are you still living? Joseph replies, yes, I'm living. He says, now I take away your hearing, so you can't see or hear. Are you still alive? Joseph says, yes. He says, now I take away your sense of touch, so now you have only 2 out of 5 senses left. Are you still alive? Joseph says, yes, indeed, I am. He says, now I take away your sense of smell too. So you only have 1 sense left. Are you alive? Joseph says, yes. Finally, he says, I take away your sense of taste. So all your 5 senses are gone. Are you alive? Joseph says, yes, indeed, I am alive. So therefore, your senses do not determine whether you are alive or dead, Cyrus says. And Joseph agrees. So taking this thought process further, Cyrus asks, when a person is in a state of coma, is he or she alive? And Joseph replies, yes, of course he is alive. She or she is alive, but unable to move or function like a normal person does. So what is life then? What does it mean to be living? Cyrus asked. He says it is very difficult for you to describe life in words. You know it, but you also don't know it. That there is more to life than some of the notions we just talked about, moving around, functioning organs, senses. He says, also Cyrus says, when we say the Creator is ever living, for example, what does ever living mean? So to understand life, we have to go down to a very deep level, Cyrus says. Let us start by exploring some questions about the Creator. Let us call the Creator God in this case. And the scriptures and most teachings say that God is the source of life. What does that mean? How does this life exist? Cyrus says, according to my understanding, life at its core is a universal consciousness. Consciousness. That's what life is. And he says, let us call this universal consciousness God consciousness, for example, so we can stay with the theme. Now he says, let us explore this God consciousness further. He says, every atom or molecule or subatom or the smallest of particles has this consciousness. So he says, think of this consciousness as a combination of intelligence with its own energy. And the two go together like a combined package. And Cyrus says, Joseph, I know you love cheese sandwiches, don't you? And Joseph goes, yes. He said, so think of the energy as the two slices and the intelligence as the cheese between the two slices. They are all one sandwich. And he said, this package of intelligence and energy is often understood by the word light in our three-dimensional world. Because he said, your eyes recognize light. So it is reasonable to think of consciousness like a form of light. It's just as an example. And he says, many of you call this consciousness a vibration, for the lack of a better word. But he said, I don't like the idea of a vibrating sandwich. Well, me neither. So Joseph bursts out laughing. He said, this angel is a funny guy, actually. And then Cyrus says, I prefer to think of this consciousness simply as intelligence with its own energy, which resembles light. So that's this God consciousness we're talking about. And he says, every rock, every particle of dust, crystal, mountain, animate and inanimate object embodies this consciousness. Everything has this consciousness. And it all starts with the God consciousness at the base level and then flows to another level, which you call nature. So you've got the God or universal consciousness and you've got nature together. And he said, let us call nature the existential consciousness, which means that everything exists because of this consciousness. So he said, we'll use the word existential consciousness for nature. So everything exists because of this consciousness, because nature hosts everything. So Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita explains nature very elegantly. He says, the Lord determines neither the doership nor the doings of beings, nor even the union of the fruit of their actions. So he says the Lord does not determine what you do and how you do things, not even whether you succeed or fail. It is nature, he says, that functions, deriving its motive power from God. So Sri Krishna lays out that differentiation where the motive power comes from God, but it is nature that unites you with the fruit of your actions. So nature here is the existential consciousness in everything. And the one who is referred to as the Lord by Sri Krishna is the God consciousness. So he is, according to Sri Krishna, the God consciousness provides the motive power, which means life force or life energy to nature. So life force, life energy comes from the God consciousness, existential consciousness, nature. They take this life force and then life happens. And that's where we are in. We are living in nature. and everything after the God consciousness then becomes the works of nature. And we have all experienced that, but maybe we've not thought about it in that context. Then Sri Krishna reveals in the Gita, under my guidance, nature gives birth to the whole of creation, moving and unmoving, and by this means the world revolves. Beautiful. He says, under my guidance, so the God consciousness is guidance, nature gives birth to the whole creation. So nature is the one which gives birth to the creation, moving and unmoving, and by this means the world revolves. And when he uses the word revolves, he means things happen, events happen, motion occurs, life as we know it occurs. And Sri Krishna also uses the word moving and unmoving, which point to animate and inanimate forms, just as we defined together a few minutes ago. So when I came across this, I thought, well, yes, we've made a good demarcation ourselves of animate and inanimate. Sri Krishna says moving and unmoving. Now, these verses from the Gita lay out two of the most powerful levels of consciousness, the God consciousness and nature, or the existential consciousness. And these verses also beautifully describe their respective roles. Now, God consciousness provides life force, and nature gives birth to and drives the world and all material forms, experiences, events, and everything. And Sri Krishna further states that of created things, coming to the world of formation, of created things, I am the beginning and the end, and also in the middle. This means that the God or universal consciousness through nature is present in everything at every point, because he says, of created things, I am the beginning and the end and the middle. So through nature, the God consciousness is present in everything, at every point, from the smallest particle or atom to the vast spaces in the universe. So Cyrus says to Joseph, you all live within the being of God, and as most of your scriptures say. And he said, this being of God is in fact a combination of the God consciousness and existential consciousness, or what you call nature. That is the being of God. When the scriptures say we live in the being of God, that's what it is. We live with God consciousness in nature. Now let me show you a simple diagram which the team put together, because I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible so we can all visualize it. So let me show you a diagram of the God consciousness and the existential consciousness and how the material world emerges from them. So you can see these are the levels of consciousness. This is a section through the ocean, an example. And at the bed of the ocean, okay, is what is called the universal consciousness or God consciousness, which is completely still. So the bed of the ocean, the bottom of the ocean is completely still. And this is where the God consciousness resides. And from here, actually, it is this stillness and it is this God consciousness that drives everything above, everything, including nature. Then from the God consciousness, you flow into the existential consciousness, the animate and the inanimate, or nature. So this, the depth of the ocean, the water, is the existential consciousness or nature. So God consciousness, nature, and then you come to the surface, which is the surface or material identity, where you can see the waves. Now, the material identity, all our physical forms, everything we see is in this area. And when people use the word vibration, you can see because there are waves involved. And in our next class, we will go into what really vibration is. So suffice to say for now, we've got the God consciousness, we got nature, and our material world derives its motive force, its forms from the world of formation, and everything else from here. Okay? To recap, you can see that the universal consciousness is the bed of the ocean, completely still, but the driving force of everything above it. And the ocean is the existential consciousness or nature, which draws its character, intelligence, and energy from the God consciousness. And nature empowers life. It is the motive force of animate and inanimate objects. Then at the surface, as you saw, with all its waves, that is the material identity of the ocean, because that is what you see. Now, the world of formation engages directly with this level of material identity of what you see. And the material identity is the physical form of every human being, animal, bird, plants, trees, forests, every form we know. So this is also where the mind resides, the lower level and the higher level mind, in that section of material identity. With inanimate forms, the material identity is the physical identity of the rocks, crystals, man-made structures, mountains, and all forms in the universe. And the material identity you saw in the diagram has waves, as I explained. And this is where the understanding of vibration comes from, which we will look at next class. Now here's another diagram so that we can sift it down to an even simpler understanding. So here you have the universal or God consciousness, and then the living forms that we call animate forms have what is called a soul linkage. Human beings, birds, trees, animals, a soul linkage which is also engaged with the existential consciousness or nature. So this is the animate forms and how they are connected with the God consciousness. Every form derives its life from here, and everything that happens in that life is derived from nature. And then here is the inanimate forms, which is things we build, mountains, rocks, crystals, and that we will cover in the next class. And we'll also talk about why people actually use crystals for healing and what are the properties that they derive and how. Because these also have an existential consciousness. They also have life and they have that linkage. So one is a soul linkage in this category. Another one is existential consciousness linkage. So we can see that the universal consciousness or God consciousness is the base or the origin from where animated life, like humans, birds, animals, trees, emerge with a soul linkage or soul connection. And this soul originates from the God or universal consciousness, which also embodies existential consciousness because it journeys within nature. And from the diagram, you can also see how inanimate life emerges also from the God consciousness, but its linkage is through existential consciousness, which is nature. So just because they don't move or behave like animated life does, it does not mean life is not present in rocks, crystals, mountains, everything we create, because they all have consciousness. Therefore, they have life. And life is present in them through nature, through the existential consciousness. That every atom, electron, nanoparticle carries that energy and intelligence. So Cyrus says, you all have to rethink how you view inanimate objects and forms in your world. They are not lifeless forms that you can do whatever you choose with. So he says, you must all press your reset button today and recognize that everything in your world has life and it has consciousness. And it is very important for you to recognize that. And he said, remember, this life or consciousness is highly intelligent because it is of the infinite intelligence. Now, let us revisit the example of how powerful this infinite intelligence is from one of the previous superconsciousness webinars, one of the very earlier ones on infinite intelligence. Many of you will remember this example, but it's worth repeating today, now in the context of the God consciousness and the existential consciousness. So now today we will try and understand actually why infinite intelligence works for us. So let us take a hypothetical event in your life to appreciate the power of infinite intelligence that resides in the Two levels of consciousness we covered: God consciousness and nature consciousness. Let us imagine for a moment that occurred a while ago where you are present at your own wedding with your soulmate standing beside you. A truly precious moment filled with love and happiness. Celebration, love, happiness prevails in the air. Now let us understand how and when was this special moment created for you. So to understand that, let's go back several thousand years, or let's go back 1,000 years. So your great, great, great grandfather, it's a long word, so I'm just going to use great grandfather. I'll refer to him as great grandfather. He was on a little boat while I was a young man in the sea, trawling for fish. And his occupation was to catch fish and take it back to the market to support his family. He didn't realize how far in the ocean he had drifted in search of his catch. And then suddenly, in the midst of the deep blue ocean, a pod of whales appeared before his boat. And a playful baby whale jumps out of the water, and as it dived back into the water, its tail smashed into the boat. And your great grandfather was hurled into the sea. And luckily, he was able to reach a floating log, which he clung to with everything he could muster. So take a moment and imagine this picture. Distressed young man clinging to a log in the deep blue ocean after losing his boat to a playful baby whale. Over a period of many days, the log he was clinging to was blown by the wind and pushed by the waves to an island where he collapsed onto the beach, exhausted and starved. So after many days, just with this log, he ended up on this island. And he was rescued by a beautiful young girl who nurtured him back to health. But this young girl, too, had come to this island from far away with her village clan because they were trying to escape the tyranny of a very cruel king. And their escape from their home was filled with peril, and many died along the way. Most of them died along the way. She was one of the few that survived and made it to this island with her siblings, where they subsequently settled. So many intricate events in her life led her to being present on the beach at the right moment to encounter and rescue your great grandfather as he lay dying on the sand. So her journey too was very complex, but she found herself at that correct moment present to rescue your great great grandfather. Some months later, they were married and they had children. And generations later, their progeny followed, transcending odds upon odds each step of the way. Think of how many events had to synchronize exactly since your great grandparents met on that island, all the way to this very moment, which has placed you at your wedding with your soulmate. How did everything align so perfectly? Imagine if the baby whale had dived just 3 feet off the boat. Your great grandfather would not have ended up on the island, and you would not be here at your wedding. Or if the wind direction had just changed by 1 degree, the log he was clinging to may have ended up on another island. Or he could have just perished at sea, then you would not be standing here. Or if your great grandmother had succumbed to the perils of her escape from the king, and she had perished like most of her clan, then you would not be here. Even the tiniest of change in either of their circumstances could have changed everything, and you would no longer exist or be present at your wedding moment. So you can see how perfectly each piece of those moments aligned, one by one, for your great grandparents to meet. Then think, 1,000 years would be at least 15 generations, assuming 60 years per generation. So at least 30 sets of parental journeys came together where the lives of every ancestor of yours had to be exactly aligned without the slightest error, even of a single minute, to make the present moment happen for you. A tiny misalignment in this sequence of events, and you may never have manifested. or this moment may never have happened the way it has. Same goes for your soulmate standing next to you. So think of how long your present moment was crafted millions of years ago. And so many trillions of odds had to be overcome to create this moment with such perfection. So, how powerful must the intelligence be that made every single piece of an infinite puzzle bring and align itself to bring you to this exact moment? That's a glimpse of infinite intelligence. So now you can see that it was the universal or God consciousness which provided the life force, and the intelligence of nature and its existential consciousness. They worked together, and this combined consciousness provided life and intelligence to every element of this story. So, what are the elements, for example, in this story? The physical body of your ancestors, the material of your ancestors' boat, its wood, its nails, everything had life and intelligence, everything. The ocean and all the exact waves, the baby whale, the floating log and all the atoms in that log, the wind, the clouds in the sky that influence the wind, the sand on the beach where your ancestor landed. Every granule of that sand contributed to the perfection of your wedding moment. And then your great grandmother and her entire journey, and then 15 generations of your family. So every animate and inanimate object in their lives, even the golden ring that you are about to put on your soulmate's finger, when was the gold formed and mined? And how did it end up here? It has a highly intelligent consciousness, and that is why it was able to deliver on the most complex algorithm ever that made it present at your wedding moment. Your ring was also present. My dear friends, these things are not objects that have no intelligence of life. They are life, they are intelligent consciousness. And all these highly intelligent and conscious living elements came together to make your moment. If the animate and inanimate objects did not have God consciousness or existential consciousness, this moment could not have been crafted for you so perfectly. They could not have been crafted, period. So, my dear friends, infinite intelligence works through all the animate and inanimate forms in your life. Infinite intelligence is not a magic wand in the air that just waves and everything happens. No, it actually lives with you every second, in every element, in every atom, including, for example, your soul, your body, the walls in your dwellings, your entire home and everything in it, your water, your air, your environment, all the people and creatures and material objects that you encounter and engage with in your journey, they are all highly intelligent because of their life force and existential consciousness. You are constantly breathing, living, seeing, walking on, and walking with the infinite intelligence. What a wonderful being that makes you. What a wonderful beings it makes all of us. And finally, by the way, the moral of the story of your wedding moment is the next time you see a whale, don't forget to say thank you. Okay, now that we are equipped with a better understanding of the God consciousness and existential consciousness as bearing life and having infinite intelligence, let us return back to the conversation between Cyrus and Joseph in that garden, because there's more to learn. So let's hear their conversation about the God consciousness. So Cyrus tells Joseph, consider the universal consciousness or God consciousness at a higher level. What do the scriptures tell us that may enlighten our thinking further about this God consciousness? And he said, here is an important verse which I will paraphrase below, which says, the Creator is one. He is the origin, absolute, independent. He was not created, nor does he procreate, and there is none comparable to him. This is a very powerful verse. The Creator is one. He is the origin of everything, the absolute, the independent. He was not created, nor does he procreate. And there is none comparable to him. So from these verses, let us identify some of the qualities and characteristics of the God consciousness. Firstly, this consciousness is based on pure unity or oneness. The Creator is one. Next, the God consciousness is the origin or foundation of all creation. It is absolute, like the number zero. All numbers exist because zero exists. Take away zero and mathematics ends. In Arabic, there is a word called al-samad, which means the source, the origin, the absolute consciousness. In Hindi, there is a similar word called purna, which is primal consciousness. So the God consciousness is independent. It does not need anything or anyone to exist. It is totally independent, and yet we all depend on it. It is continuous, with no beginning or no end. That is why this consciousness was never created, nor does it procreate, because it is continuous, no beginning, no end, eternal. And because it is continuous, it is non-divisible. How can you divide anything that is continuous? And it confers consciousness in the form of the soul or existential consciousness to all forms of creation. That's what the scriptures say. The animated and the non-animated form in our material world and in all the worlds and in all the universes. And this God consciousness is not comparable to anything we know. Hence, it is beyond our imagination. So don't try to imagine it. Go into meditation. Live in oneness to actually discover and experience this consciousness. Because now you know you're aware of it. And we have covered in many of our classes about oneness, seeking the extraordinary in the ordinary. That's where this God consciousness and nature can be seen and experienced and known, internalized and understood. And in a separate quote in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, I am the origin of all. From me the whole creation proceeds. So here are two different scriptures saying the same thing, because the truth is universal. So my dear friends, God consciousness is life, because from here every atom, particle, every nanoparticle gains its energy and intelligence. So Angel Cyrus has a nice short analogy for God and universal consciousness for us all to understand. I thought maybe we already got it, but Cyrus thinks you need to see one more picture. So I'm going to show you that picture. So what Cyrus says is, consider this carpet as the God consciousness. Think of this carpet like you did the bed of the ocean in the other diagram. And anything that rests on this carpet is part of nature. It has existential consciousness. So this beautiful amethyst rock gains its life and consciousness through the existential consciousness. It is alive. Anything that rests or connects with this carpet is alive. This plant is alive. It comes alive. The person standing on this carpet comes alive. So this all is nature. This is the God consciousness. So this is Cyrus's way of saying, forget those complicated diagrams. Just stand on a carpet and look, and you will see the baseline is the God consciousness. Everything that rests on it is nature, and everything that rests on it is therefore alive. So thank you, Cyrus. I like you. Cyrus says, by showing us this carpet and the analogy of the rock and the plant and the person, is that this carpet is in fact a reservoir of life, which is intelligence and energy, which is the God consciousness. So think of that carpet as a reservoir of life. Anything that is in its being, is alive. Now, one important aspect of God consciousness we often come across in our world of water is love. The Holy Bible talks repeatedly of God being love. Love was also the hallmark of the blessed Jesus Christ. We often hear the phrase, God loves you, but we don't really understand what this love is. What is it? So, my dear friends, let us examine love based on our simple material understanding. Love is the most powerful form of attraction we know. When you love someone, you want to be close to them. You think of them with very positive energy. When you love someone, you are connected to them constantly through its powerful yet subtle energy. When you love someone, you will do everything to nurture them and provide for them in the best way possible. When you love someone, you will facilitate their journey as best as you can. When you love someone, you will be generous towards them. And we can add so many attributes of love here. Similarly, in the same vein, the God consciousness, with its power of love, holds together all of creation, every moment, providing for every creature, nurturing it, caring for it, facilitating it, continuously creating more for it. This is what it means when you hear the word, God loves you. How powerful must His love be to hold together the universes and all creation? I can't imagine any magnet more powerful than this love. So, my dear friends, God consciousness has many hallmarks. Life and love are two of them. So, as we wrap up the subject of animate living forms, let us return to the question of life briefly. We all agreed that when you are in a state of coma, you're still alive. It means that even in coma, every atom of your being still possesses existential consciousness, and hence your organs and cells keep functioning. And let us say that you are in a coma and you die. You are still not dead, neither your body nor your soul. The soul is easy to understand, and we have talked about it at length, so I won't repeat it again here today. But suffice it to say that it embodies life energy and it lives on and it is eternal. And if you wish to learn more and reflect on the soul, please view the recording on my YouTube channel or on our website, which is entitled How to Know the Soul and Understand Reincarnation. I think it is one of the most recent videos we released. So now let's come to the body. When you die, all movement stops. But your cells and the molecules that make up your body still have their existential consciousness. The body has gone from animated state to inanimated state. That's the only change. Then, when you leave the body for a period of time, the bacteria which were dormant in your body while you were alive, they become active and they start breaking down the body. The bacteria that break down the body actually have always lived with you. That janitor who is going to clean up after you leave and leave this physical form has always lived within you. Now they come alive and they break down your body. So they make the body rot, converts your cells to gases and other materials. So if you bury this body, this process continues and it can exist for a long period of time until the body is totally broken up into gases, liquids, solids, organic chemicals, all of which carry the same existential consciousness as your original body. After burial, the chemicals become nutrients for plants and grass, for example. And their existential consciousness becomes part of the existential consciousness of the plants and the grass. So even after death, your body's existential consciousness continues to live. It just changes into different forms and then merges with other forms. So the body lives forever in new states and forms. Burial results in a slow breakdown of the body and then its conversion to other elements of nature. So it's a slow process. When we cremate the body, we break it down very fast with fire, changing it to mostly a gaseous form. And the same existential consciousness is now present in gases. The ash, which contains the materials and items that could not vaporize, is then dispersed in water, or many people store the ashes in urns or they return it to nature in whatever way. But for example, if you store the ashes in an urn, the ash particles continue to contain the body's existential consciousness. So, which of the two processes is better, burial or cremation? I would say the end result is similar for both approaches, one being much faster than the other. The impact of burial is greater to the nearest environment where the body is buried. So, for example, when the body becomes nutrients, etc., the impact is limited to a smaller area where the grass grows, becomes part of a tree, but it has a limited area. The impact of cremation is more widespread, dispersed, and fast. Now, even though with burial it becomes the trees and plants, and then when those trees die and they expand, ultimately it returns to infinity. And with cremation, it returns to infinity. One is a rapid process, one is a slow process. But at this point, also remember time and speed are unimportant and almost irrelevant. So, burial or cremation is entirely a matter of personal choice. But we must always remember that the existential consciousness continues to exist, whichever option you choose. And this raises the interesting question of organ donation. Now we can see that the existential consciousness in the cells of the organ of the donor is transferred to the recipient. Then it becomes part of the existential consciousness of the recipient. So, in many ways, organ donation is not so different from burial, for example, where instead of the existential consciousness of the body becoming or transforming into grass and trees, it transforms and becomes part of the recipient's body. Now, existential consciousness is from the God consciousness. So it is totally neutral, neither positive nor negative. It is life. Therefore, in organ donation, at the level of consciousness, the new organ does not alter the existing existential consciousness of the recipient because it is neutral. So whether the donor is positive, negative, etc., when it comes to transference of life and that level of consciousness, it's always neutral, always equilibrium. And we have talked about equilibrium at great length. And please go back and revisit the videos on that. So life force is neutral always, pure equilibrium. So in my opinion, organ donation is completely fine from a consciousness perspective. And from an ethical viewpoint, if your organ helps give a better life to someone, it may be worth considering. If you choose not to donate your organs, that is fine too. Their existential consciousness will become part of the air, the birds, the animals, the trees. Of course, one has to balance the concept of organ donation with one's personal and religious beliefs, and that is entirely up to the individual. But all in all, I don't see anything negative about organ donation, at least at an existential consciousness level, at the level of nature. I don't see anything negative. So now Angel Luminous joins Cyrus and Joseph in the garden. Remember the garden with the reflection pool. And Cyrus says to Joseph, you can now appreciate from our discussion that the Creator is so vast and infinite and present in everything as a consciousness which we call life. You can recognize that God is something far greater than a being who pulls your strings like you were puppets. Far greater than that. Or gets angry when you do wrong and is happy when you do right. His mood is not governed by your actions. Neither is he sitting with a hammer waiting for you to do something wrong so he can clobber you on the head. This is a very naive notion of God that was created by you humans, Cyrus says. You have personified the Creator and given him human attributes and behaviors. Many of you have even given him a job description. And that's fine for you if that's what you believe to be the case. So, my dear friends, I agree with Cyrus and Luminous on this point. When I was a kid, and I was quite mischievous, and the elderly folks always said to me that I did something wrong, that God would throw me in the fire one day. And I grew up feeling like a hamburger who would one day end up in his frying pan. You can imagine my relief when I discovered how loving and nurturing the God consciousness was. Something to celebrate. So, on a more serious note, at a broader level, and in reality, let us consider that the Creator is the infinite reservoir of life. He is the universal consciousness. If you view Him that way, then you can appreciate that He plays no direct role in our good or bad deeds. Sri Krishna articulates this in the Bhagavad Gita through the following three statements. He says, the omnipresent does not partake in the virtue or sin of anyone. The Lord determines neither the doership nor the doings of beings, nor even their union with the fruit of their actions, because he said earlier that that is nature. And he says finally, I am equally present in all beings. There is none hateful or dear to me. So these three again shows that independent nature of that life energy. And we looked at that one verse which says he is absolute and independent. That is what that independent means. And Cyrus and Luminous tells Joseph, Cyrus and I watched quite an offensive diatribe by a guest on American television on a show condemning God for all the bad things that happen in your world, telling him that he should be ashamed of himself. And he said this man was not trying to be funny, he was visibly angry. Of course, if he gave God a job description and God did not perform the job to his expectation, then it could explain his somewhat naive and angry stance. So Cyrus interjects, remember, the God consciousness is like that carpet that makes everything on it alive, according to the picture I shared with you just now. He said, think of God as oxygen for a moment. You live within an atmosphere. The air you breathe in is oxygen, and you breathe continuously, which keeps you alive. The oxygen continues to sustain you every moment, and you get to consume as much as you want. Then you watch a terrible atrocity on television and say of great injustice, and you get mad about why this is happening, and you start blaming the oxygen for it. You tell the oxygen it should be ashamed. Cyrus and Luminous look at Joseph and say, doesn't make any sense, does it? When you stand on a cliff facing the vast ocean, ask yourself, can this ocean possibly be reduced in its grandness to my level as a simple human being? The answer is no. Could I even start to consider giving this vast ocean a job description? Think about it. You are minuscule and almost insignificant before this vast ocean. Therefore, it is time to start viewing God and God consciousness with this level of humility and understanding of its pure independence, its pure absolute level. The ocean gives you water, it gives you life, and it lets you live your life as a being of water. So be humble and eternally grateful. And actually, this conversation on man-made God concept, while I conclude, reminds me of an example from my days at university in the UK in the 1970s. We had a room on campus which members of different faiths could book for their prayer services. And I enjoyed attending these sessions and listening to sermons of different faiths because you always learn something new. I've always had an interest in universality. And I remember attending one service and not knowing exactly all the correct body movements that I needed to follow in this prayer. So I joined them and I made some mistakes. So at the end of the service, one of the students comes up to me and says, "Your prayer will never be accepted because your movements were wrong." So you can imagine my shock at this statement. We're talking mid 70s. So I wasn't the calm individual I am now. So my first question was, were you praying or watching me? Secondly, are you qualified to know what prayers God accepts and what He doesn't? Have you ever seen God or spoken to Him? Did He appoint you as His policeman? This young man had grown up being taught exactly how God thinks, His likes, His dislikes, and he went about projecting this on everyone else because this is the man made God. Of course, he picked the wrong person to police that day and never lived it down because I gave him the title of Deputy God. And that spread across campus like a wildfire because he had done that to many people before me, which I didn't know. So his new title of Deputy God was immediately endorsed by many, and I think he regretted ever doing that again. So this brings me to the conclusion of our class. We have done quite well for time. Now let us take a few moments and meditate, do a short meditation, and engage with the God consciousness and the consciousness of nature in today's meditation. It'll be the same steps as the meditations we have done now, but now you will recognize that at oneness is when you are flowing into nature, the consciousness of nature. And when you get to linkage, you're flowing into the God consciousness. So even the techniques I've shared with you, now you can see which technique connects where. And in our next class, I'm going to share with you a meditation map where each of the techniques, what does it do in terms of raising the level of your consciousness and how you work with it. So next class will be very meditation oriented. So in today's meditation, we will take a few moments with oneness, which is the consciousness of nature, oneness, and in linkage, which is the God consciousness. So sit back, relax, close your eyes, and breathe freely. Be completely at peace. Breathe freely, completely at peace. Let go of all your tensions, worries. Let go of all the energies in your body that are of a troublesome nature and be at complete peace. Complete peace. And I'd like you to imagine you're standing in front of this beautiful lake. It's a beautiful morning sun. Sun is shining, the grass is green. In the distance, you can see snow-peaked mountains. There's trees, birds flying in the blue sky, flowers, nature everywhere. Take a moment and look at this beautiful setting. And you are in front of this crystal clear lake of water. And then you start walking and you enter the lake. And you walk until your knees. Your water is at your knee height. And you look at the water, it is so clear, but it has small ripples and waves. And you would like to make this water go completely still. So you look at the ripples and waves and repeat in your mind, stillness, stillness, stillness. And as you repeat the word stillness, you make the water go completely still. Take a few moments and repeat stillness. Stillness. stillness, complete stillness. The water is now completely still. You can see the reflection of your face in the water like it were a mirror, the reflection of the blue sky and the sunlight. And as you look up and see the rest of the lake, it is totally still, just like a sheet, just like a mirror, completely still. As you repeat, stillness, stillness, stillness. You are now completely still. And you now repeat silence, silence, silence. Keep repeating the word silence. As you go completely silent, everything around you goes completely silent. Silence. Silence. You are completely still and completely silent. And you turn around and start to walk away from the lake in complete silence. And you keep walking till you get to your home. And your home is a white building with 2 floors and a terrace, which is open to the sky. And you open your front door and you enter the home, and it is filled with people, with laughter, with talking, with noise. Everyone is happy. But you want stillness. You want silence. So you ask everyone to sit on the floor with you, and you go completely still, completely silent as you repeat stillness, 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 silence, silence, silence. Everyone is completely still and completely silent. And then you climb up the staircase to the first floor. And you enter a room, a big room with a huge window, glass window, which is open. And near the window is a table which has 3 boxes. And each box has a balloon the size of a party balloon. So you open the first box, which says the world. And you pull out the white balloon, place it outside of the window, and let the balloon begin to drift away. And it keeps drifting until its cord becomes tight around your hand, because the balloon has a string. And as the cord becomes tight, you take a scissor and you repeat, detach, detach, detach. And you cut the cord and let the balloon, the white balloon, begin to drift away. And watch it drift until it goes far away into the horizon, until you can see it no more. You have detached from your world that is filled with your family, loved ones, hopes, aspirations, challenges, everything. You have detached from this world for now. And then you open the second box, which says the past, and take out the green balloon and let it go out of the window just like you did the white balloon. And when the cord becomes tight on your hand, you take the scissor and cut the cord as you repeat, detach, detach, detach. You have detached from the past all your memories, everything that has brought you here in life. Detach, detach. And the green balloon also disappears into the distance, into the horizon, and you see it no more. And then you take out the last box, which says the future, and you take out the yellow balloon. Place it outside of the window like you did the other balloons and let it drift away. And then you cut the cord with that yellow balloon, which is the balloon of your future, the balloon of all your hopes, aspirations, everything about your future. You cut the cord and let the balloon drift away as you repeat, detach, 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 until this yellow balloon disappears into the horizon. You have let go of the world, the past, and the future, and you are now in the pure present, pure present, pure present. You are completely still, completely silent as you climb up the final staircase to the terrace. And when you open the terrace, you are outside and it is dark now, it is night. You look in the sky and you see the moon and you see the stars. And you stretch your arms open to become one with all of the universes as you repeat the words oneness, oneness, oneness. You are in oneness with your Creator, oneness with the consciousness of nature, oneness, oneness. You are nature, oneness. Keep repeating the word oneness. Oneness. You are the consciousness of nature. Oneness. Oneness. And all around you now there is light. Everything is filled with light as you flow in the oneness through the consciousness of nature as you reach the level of God consciousness, where you are received by this hand of a loving parent which appears before you in the light. And you are the child. You place your full trust in this hand of your loving Creator and let go of all your thoughts, all control, all ego as you repeat surrender, 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 as you allow the hand of your Creator to lead you into the light, into pure God consciousness. The consciousness where you will now remember your linkage word, which is the name of your Creator, your source. It's a name you have either chosen or you have been given. While I will use origin, you will repeat your linkage word in a nice, slow rhythm as you flow into the God consciousness, seeking the light of your Creator. seeking completion of your journey. Oneness, oneness, oneness. Keep repeating your linkage word for a few moments. Oneness, oneness. In the presence of the light of the Creator, we offer a special healing prayer for all those who are suffering from COVID, from all illnesses. We repeat the words, heal in the name of the light, and you can repeat the word light with the name of your Creator. Heal in the name of the light. Heal in the name of the light. As the light of healing flows through you, reaching every element of your being, healing every element of your being, and the light of healing flows from you to all those who are ill, suffering, in pain, in sorrow, in misery, in grief. Heal in the name of the light. Heal in the name of the light. Keep repeating these words. Heal in the name of the light. And in the presence of the light, in the presence of the God consciousness, we offer gratitude. Gratitude for all the blessings we have received. Gratitude for being present in today's meditation. Gratitude for all the happiness, peace, love, abundance, all those in our lives who make our world and our lives fulfilled. Gratitude for the blessing of clean air, water, earth, the environment. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. You may open your eyes whenever you're ready. I would like to thank each one of you for being present here today in this meditation, bringing your light, your love, your blessings to this meditation, joining us to seek healing for those in need. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each one of you, and I pray that you may always be blessed for this special service you offer, spiritual service to all those in need. I pray that you may always be blessed with peace, happiness, abundance, and light in your lives, light in every moment of your journey. And I pray that the blessing of this light of the origin always be with you, to help you, guide you, protect you and keep you safe, and to love you always. Stay blessed, and I look forward to seeing you all at the Sharing Hope meditation next week. Thank you.